Good evening. 607 days later, we finally have closure in a case that forever changed our city.
Jurors spent a little more than 5 hours reaching a verdict, and in the end, they found Emanuel Samson guilty on all 43 counts. Sentencing will continue on Tuesday. News Channel 5's Matthew Torres and Jason Lamb are following this case at the courthouse, and Matthew, reaction is pouring in from the verdict. Are people surprised?
Really, at this point, they were not surprised. As each verdict was being read, Emanuel Samson's head was down the entire time. His defense never denied that he was the one who pulled the trigger back on September 24, 2017. They did argue that there was no intent behind the shooting, but today, jurors made it clear they don't agree.
Victim Melanie Crow, first-degree premeditated murder.
Letter A, guilty of first-degree premeditated murder.
After 4 days of testimony and piles of evidence, Emanuel Samson was found guilty on all 43 counts, including premeditated first-degree murder for the death of Melanie Crow.
I am so glad we got justice for Melanie. They said it was the first time they saw that big smile on my face.
Melanie's mother was overcome with joy and relief. Samson shot and killed her daughter in the parking lot of the Burnett Chapel Church of Christ before opening fire inside the church.
She was just a sweet person, and she had a big smile.
The defense says he was suicidal and depressed, but prosecutors argued he planned to kill white parishioners as revenge for the Charleston church shooter. The jury also found him guilty of civil rights intimidation.
My heart just exploded. I was so excited.
But for church members like Ermela Bishop, who was there, she doesn't have complete closure.
I think about it every day. I replay it every day.
Samson was active at the church several years ago, but Minister Joey Spann says he's unrecognizable now.
It's been hard for this last year and a half to 2 years to want that boy in jail forever. But it's not hard to want this guy in jail forever.
As the congregation continues to heal, they pray Samson will find God again, but behind bars.
I have forgiven him. Yes, I have, and I think that's what we're required to do as Christians, is to forgive.
And Melanie Crow's sister tells me that some family members actually wanted the death penalty, but district attorneys told them that they would be pursuing life without the possibility of parole instead. Some church members also said they wanted the death penalty, but then changed their mind. Continue our coverage now is News Channel 5's Jason Lamb with what's next in this trial. Jason.
Well, that's right. The trial went immediately over into the sentencing phase here, and so the jury has to decide what exact punishment Samson will receive. Now, we know Samson will get a life sentence, but the jury now will decide whether he should be eligible for parole after 51 years. Jurors heard more witness testimony after the verdict, centered exclusively around the sentencing decision they now have before them. Included in that testimony was victim impact statements from Amy Minor, who was the victim Melanie Crow's sister-in-law, as well as the church pastor Joey Spann.
It's been referenced by different people that people have their spots in the church, and they do. She had her spot, but it's empty. It will remain so. In her place, we've built a memorial garden. It's not the same. The parking spot, you can't go in our building without seeing it. And those memories will always be there.
So the jurors will be back on Tuesday, and the News Channel 5 network will keep you connected gavel to gavel as this sentencing hearing continues. Now, for some analysis on today's verdict, let's go to Nick and Nick.
Nick Barris here, along with legal analyst Nick Leonardo. And yes, after 5 days of testimony, including today, we have a verdict that came in guilty on all counts for Emanuel Samson. The jury was out about 5 hours, over 2 days, came back this afternoon right after lunch. Your take, Nick, on this verdict, every single count. guilty, including the most important one, number 4.
That's exactly right. I mean, this was a great day for the prosecution. It was a great day for the victims of the Burnett Chapel Church. He was found guilty on every indicted offense, and the biggest one was count 4 because that is where the jury is now involved in the sentencing phase. And
First-degree murder of Melanie Crow.
That's exactly right. They're going to have to determine whether or not the defendant gets life in prison or life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Okay, and there was some concern. Did the defense score some points with the jury talking about the mental state? And the longer the deliberation went on, people wondered. But ultimately, you think they saw through that and recognized everything else they heard? This was a clear case of murder?
Obviously, I think they were able to see through it, but I knew that every minute that passed that they didn't have a verdict was nothing more than helping Mr. Samson, because he admitted at opening argument that he committed the crimes.
Yeah. All right. So from here, sentencing. And we expect they'll be back after this Memorial Day weekend.
That's right. We'll do some of it today, and I think that it should wrap up and that she should charge him on sentencing probably Tuesday.
Ultimately speaking, though, he's going to spend the rest of his life behind bars.
Absolutely. There are other convictions here that can run consecutive, so yeah, he will spend the rest of his life behind bars.
All right. We'll have more, of course, come Tuesday. We'll send it back to you in the studio.